Welcome to our video series, Conceptual Relationships of Words in the English Language. In this series, we present English vocabulary in a structured and hierarchical manner. Each video showcases a range of terms and their corresponding definitions, presented in an organized sequence from broader concepts to more specific details. The series is divided into playlists, videos, and sections, each delving into distinct aspects of the English language. To get the most out of these videos, here are some of the suggested uses. We will be using WordNet as our primary reference throughout the series. For detailed information about WordNet, please visit the official WordNet website. If you're new to our channel, we recommend starting with our introductory videos. They provide essential context for understanding our approach, purpose, and methodology. For simpler navigation, we presented an outline of the terms and relationships in one of these introductory videos. Remember to show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. In this episode, we will explore psychological states. This video is part of the playlist Attribute State. Attribute State playlist is one of two playlists devoted to the conceptual domain attribute. Attributes are linguistic elements that serve as modifiers to provide descriptive information about another word. They convey qualities, characteristics, or properties associated with the entities they modify, enriching the meaning and context of the expression. Section 1. In this section, we will explore conscious, subconscious, and unconscious.
Condition. Condition.
A state at a particular time.
The current status of the arms negotiations.
Psychological state. Psychological state.
Psychology, a mental condition in which the qualities of a state are relatively constant, even though the state itself may be dynamic.
A manic state.
Cognitive state. Cognitive state.
The state of a person's cognitive processes.
Consciousness. Consciousness.
An alert cognitive state in which you are aware of yourself and your situation.
He lost consciousness.
Awareness. Awareness.
State of elementary or undifferentiated consciousness.
The crash intruded on his awareness.
Self. Self.
Your consciousness of your own identity.
Anema. Anema.
Jungian psychology, the inner self, not the external persona, that is in touch with the unconscious.
Sensibility. Sensibility.
Mental responsiveness and awareness.
Stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness.
The continuous flow of ideas and feelings that constitute an individual's conscious experience.
Waking. Waking.
The state of remaining awake.
Days of danger and nights of waking.
Wakefulness. Wakefulness.
A periodic state during which you are conscious and aware of the world.
Consciousness during wakefulness in a sane person is pretty well ordered and familiar.
Arousal. Arousal.
Awakening from sleep.
Vigil. Vigil.
A period of sleeplessness.
Subconsciousness. Subconsciousness.
A state of mind not immediately available to consciousness.
Unconsciousness. Unconsciousness.
A state lacking normal awareness of the self or environment.
Automatic pilot. Automatic pilot.
A cognitive state in which you act without self-awareness.
Too much of the writing seems to have been done on automatic pilot.
Blackout. Blackout.
A momentary loss of consciousness.
Coma. Coma.
A state of deep and often prolonged unconsciousness, usually the result of disease or injury.
Diabetic coma. Diabetic coma.
Coma that can develop in inadequately treated cases of diabetes mellitus.
Hepatic coma. Hepatic coma.
Coma that can occur in severe cases of liver disease.
Electrosleep. Electrosleep.
Unconsciousness brought about by the passage of a low-voltage electric current through the brain.
Grogginess. Grogginess.
Marginal consciousness.
His grogginess was caused as much by exhaustion as by the blows.
Insensibility. Insensibility.
A lack of sensibility.
Narcosis. Narcosis.
Unconsciousness induced by narcotics or anesthesia.
Nitrogen narcosis. Nitrogen narcosis.
Confused or stupor state caused by high levels of dissolved nitrogen in the blood.
Deep-sea divers can suffer nitrogen narcosis from breathing air under high pressure.
Semicoma. Semicoma.
A mild comatose state, a coma from which the person can be roused by appropriate stimuli.
Semi-trance. Semi-trance.
A trance-like state in which the person can follow instructions, but voluntary action is weak or absent.
Trance. Trance.
A state of mind in which consciousness is fragile and voluntary action is poor or missing, a state resembling deep sleep.
Hypnotic trance. Hypnotic trance.
A trance induced by the use of hypnosis, the person accepts the suggestions of the hypnotist.
Religious trance. Religious trance.
A trance induced by intense religious devotion does not show reduced bodily functions that are typical of other trances.
Unknowingness. Unknowingness.
Unconsciousness resulting from lack of knowledge or attention.
Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness.
Unawareness caused by neglectful or heedless failure to remember.
His forgetfulness increased as he grew older.
Obliviousness. Obliviousness.
Total forgetfulness.
He sought the great oblivion of sleep.
Unselfconsciousness. Unselfconsciousness.
The quality of being not self-conscious, unawareness of yourself or of others' views of yourself.
He had the unself-consciousness of a child.
Section 2. In this section, we will explore amnesia, confusion, and preoccupation.
Amnesia. Amnesia.
Partial or total loss of memory.
He has a total blackout for events of the evening.
Anterograde amnesia. Anterograde amnesia.
Loss of memory for events immediately following a trauma, sometimes in effect for events during and for a long time following the trauma.
Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness.
Tendency to forget.
Senior moment. Senior moment.
A momentary lapse of memory, especially in older people.
Retrograde amnesia. Retrograde amnesia.
Loss of memory for events immediately preceding a trauma.
Selective amnesia. Selective amnesia.
Amnesia about particular events that is very convenient for the person who cannot remember.
Why do politicians always develop selective amnesia when questioned about their transgressions?
Posthypnotic amnesia. Posthypnotic amnesia.
Selective amnesia after being in a hypnotic state of events occurring during hypnosis or of information designated by the hypnotist.
Transient global amnesia. Transient global amnesia.
Memory disorder seen in middle-aged and elderly persons, characterized by an episode of amnesia and bewilderment that lasts for several hours. Person is otherwise alert and intellectually active.
Confusion. Confusion.
A mental state characterized by a lack of clear and orderly thought and behavior.
A confusion of impressions.
Bewilderment. Bewilderment.
Confusion resulting from failure to understand.
Daze. Daze.
Confusion characterized by lack of clarity.
Disorientation. Disorientation.
Confusion, usually transient, about where you are and how to proceed, uncertainty as to direction.
His disorientation was the result of inattention.
Culture shock. Culture shock.
A condition of disorientation affecting someone who is suddenly exposed to an unfamiliar culture or way of life or set of attitudes.
Distraction. Distraction.
Mental turmoil.
He drives me to distraction.
Half cock. Half cock.
Confusion resulting from lack of preparation.
Jamais vu. Jamais vu.
The experience of being unfamiliar with a person or situation that is actually very familiar, associated with certain types of epilepsy.
Perplexity. Perplexity.
trouble or confusion resulting from complexity.
Dilemma. Dilemma.
State of uncertainty or perplexity, especially as requiring a choice between equally unfavorable options.
Double bind. Double bind.
Psychology, an unresolvable dilemma, situation in which a person receives contradictory messages from a person who is very powerful.
Mystery. Mystery.
Something that baffles understanding and cannot be explained.
It remains one of nature's secrets.
Tangle. Tangle.
Something jumbled or confused.
A tangle of government regulations.
Paramnesia. Paramnesia.
Psychiatry, a disorder of memory in which dreams or fantasies are confused with reality.
Preoccupation. Preoccupation.
The mental state of being preoccupied by something.
Absentmindedness. Absentmindedness.
Preoccupation so great that the ordinary demands on attention are ignored.
Abstractedness. Abstractedness.
Preoccupation with something to the exclusion of all else.
Reverie. Reverie.
An abstracted state of absorption.
Brown study. Brown study.
A state of deep absorption or thoughtfulness.
Dream. Dream.
A state of mind characterized by abstraction and release from reality.
He went about his work as if in a dream.
Section 3. In this section, we will explore curiosity.
Curiosity. Curiosity.
A state in which you want to learn more about something.
Curiousness. Curiousness.
A state of active curiosity.
Nosiness. Nosiness.
Offensive inquisitiveness.
Desire to know. Desire to know.
Curiosity that motivates investigation and study.
Interest. Interest.
A sense of concern with and curiosity about someone or something.
An interest in music.
Concern. Concern.
Something that interests you because it is important or affects you.
The safety of the ship is the captain's concern.
Matter. Matter.
A vaguely specified concern.
Several matters to attend to.
Least. Least.
Something that is of no importance.
That is the least of my concerns.
Part. Part.
That which concerns a person with regard to a particular role or situation.
They resisted every effort on his part.
Personal business. Personal business.
Matters of personal concern.
Get his affairs in order.
Dirty linen. Dirty linen.
Personal matters that could be embarrassing if made public.
Point of honor. Point of honor.
A concern that seriously reflects on your honor.
Worldly concern. Worldly concern.
The concerns of this life as distinguished from heaven and the afterlife.
They consider the church to be independent of the world.
Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm.
A lively interest.
Enthusiasm for his program is growing.
Anglomania. Anglomania.
An excessive enthusiasm for all things English.
Balletomania. Balletomania.
Extraordinary enthusiasm for ballets.
Interestedness. Interestedness.
The state of being interested.
Section 4. In this section, we will explore certainty and doubt.
Certainty. Certainty.
The state of being certain.
His certainty reassured the others.
Assurance. Assurance.
Freedom from doubt, belief in yourself and your abilities.
His assurance in his superiority did not make him popular.
Certitude. Certitude.
Total certainty or greater certainty than circumstances warrant.
Reliance. Reliance.
Certainty based on past experience.
He wrote the paper with considerable reliance on the work of other scientists.
Doubt. Doubt.
The state of being unsure of something.
Incredulity. Incredulity.
Doubt about the truth of something.
Indecision. Indecision.
Doubt concerning two or more possible alternatives or courses of action.
His indecision was only momentary, but the opportunity was lost.
Hesitation. Hesitation.
Indecision in speech or action.
Mental reservation. Mental reservation.
An unstated doubt that prevents you from accepting something wholeheartedly.
Misgiving. Misgiving.
Doubt about someone's honesty.
Peradventure. Peradventure.
Doubt or uncertainty as to whether something is the case.
This proves beyond peradventure that he is innocent.
Suspense. Suspense.
An uncertain cognitive state.
The matter remained in suspense for several years.
Inwardness. Inwardness.
Preoccupation especially with one's attitudes and ethical or ideological values.
Inwardness is what an Englishman quite simply has, painlessly, as a birthright.
Outwardness. Outwardness.
Concern with outward things or material objects as opposed to the mind and spirit.
An abstract conception with feelings of reality and spatial outwardness attached to it.
Ivory tower. Ivory tower.
A state of mind that is discussed as if it were a place.
He lived in the ivory tower of speculation.
Morbidity. Morbidity.
An abnormally gloomy or unhealthy state of mind.
His fear of being alone verges on morbidity.
Set. Set.
Psychology, being temporarily ready to respond in a particular way.
The subject set led them to solve problems the familiar way and to overlook the simpler solution.
Section 5. In this section, we will explore some miscellaneous emotional states.
Abulia. Abulia.
The loss of willpower.
Anhedonia. Anhedonia.
An inability to experience pleasure.
Enchantment. Enchantment.
A psychological state induced by, or as if induced by, a magical incantation.
Fascination. Fascination.
The state of being intensely interested, as by or terror.
Possession. Possession.
Being controlled by passion or the supernatural.
Fugue. Fugue.
A dreamlike state of altered consciousness that may last for hours or days.
Hypnosis. Hypnosis.
A state that resembles sleep, but that is induced by suggestion.
Self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis.
Hypnosis induced by yourself.
Morale. Morale.
A state of individual psychological well-being, based upon a sense of confidence and usefulness and purpose.
State of mind. State of mind.
A temporary psychological state.
Case. Case.
A specific state of mind that is temporary.
A case of the jitters.
Thinking cap. Thinking cap.
A state in which one thinks.
Depression. Depression.
A mental state characterized by a pessimistic sense of inadequacy and a despondent lack of activity.
Blues. Blues.
A state of depression.
He had a bad case of the blues.
Dejection. Dejection.
A state of melancholy depression.
Funk. Funk.
A state of nervous depression.
He was in a funk.
Low spirits. Low spirits.
A state of mild depression.
Dumps. Dumps.
An informal expression for a mildly depressed state.
Have the mopes.
Melancholia. Melancholia.
Extreme depression characterized by tearful sadness and irrational fears.
Melancholy. Melancholy.
A constitutional tendency to be gloomy and depressed.
Slough of despond. Slough of despond.
Formal, extreme depression.
Elation. Elation.
An exhilarating psychological state of pride and optimism, an absence of depression.
Bliss. Bliss.
A state of extreme happiness.
Ecstasy. Ecstasy.
A state of elated bliss.
High. High.
A state of sustained elation.
I'm on a permanent high these days.
High. High.
A state of altered consciousness induced by alcohol or narcotics.
They took drugs to get a high on.
Section 6. In this section, we will explore agitation, anxiety, irritation, and nervousness.
Agitation. Agitation.
A mental state of extreme emotional disturbance.
Disturbance. Disturbance.
An unhappy and worried mental state.
She didn't realize the upset she caused me.
Dither. Dither.
An excited state of agitation.
There was a terrible flap about the theft.
Fret. Fret.
Agitation resulting from active worry.
He's in a sweat about exams.
Tailspin. Tailspin.
Loss of emotional control often resulting in emotional collapse.
Anxiety. Anxiety.
Psychiatry, a relatively permanent state of worry and nervousness occurring in a variety of mental disorders, usually accompanied by compulsive behavior or attacks of panic.
Castration anxiety. Castration anxiety.
Psychoanalysis, anxiety resulting from real or imagined threats to your sexual functions, originally applied only to men but can in principle apply to women.
Hypochondria. Hypochondria.
Chronic and abnormal anxiety about imaginary symptoms and ailments.
Overanxiety. Overanxiety.
Excessive anxiety.
Panic. Panic.
Sudden mass fear and anxiety over anticipated events.
A bomb scare led them to evacuate the building.
Red Scare. Red Scare.
A period of general fear of communists.
Irritation. Irritation.
The psychological state of being irritated or annoyed.
Bummer. Bummer.
An experience that is irritating or frustrating or disappointing.
Having to stand in line so long was a real bummer.
Huff. Huff.
A state of irritation or annoyance.
Pinprick. Pinprick.
A minor annoyance.
Restlessness. Restlessness.
A lack of patience, irritation with anything that causes delay.
Snit. Snit.
A state of agitated irritation.
He was in a snit.
Nervousness. Nervousness.
An uneasy psychological state.
He suffered an attack of nerves.
Jitters. Jitters.
Extreme nervousness.
Strain. Strain.
Psychology, nervousness resulting from mental stress.
The mental strain of staying alert hour after hour was too much for him.
Tension. Tension.
Psychology, a state of mental or emotional strain or suspense.
He suffered from fatigue and emotional tension.
Breaking point. Breaking point.
Psychology, stress at which a person breaks down or a situation becomes crucial.
Yips. Yips.
Nervous tension that causes an athlete to fail, especially causes golfers to miss short putts.
To avoid the yips, he changed his style of putting.
Section 7. In this section, we will explore delusion, dissociation, and related words.
Depersonalization. Depersonalization.
Existentialism, a loss of personal identity, a feeling of being an anonymous cog in an impersonal social machine.
Identity crisis. Identity crisis.
Distress and disorientation, especially in adolescence, resulting from conflicting pressures and uncertainty about oneself and one's role in society.
Trauma. Trauma.
An emotional wound or shock often having long-lasting effects.
Birth trauma. Birth trauma.
Emotional injury inflicted on an infant by events incident to birth that is alleged to appear in symbolic form in patients with mental illness.
Delusion. Delusion.
Psychology, an erroneous belief that is held in the face of evidence to the contrary.
Delusions of grandeur. Delusions of grandeur.
A delusion, common in paranoia, that you are much greater and more powerful and influential than you really are.
Delusions of persecution. Delusions of persecution.
A delusion, common in paranoia, that others are out to get you and frustrate and embarrass you or inflict suffering on you. A complicated conspiracy is frequently imagined.
Hallucination. Hallucination.
Illusory perception, a common symptom of severe mental disorder.
Auditory hallucination. Auditory hallucination.
Illusory auditory perception of strange nonverbal sounds.
Pseudo-hallucination. Pseudo-hallucination.
An image vivid enough to be a hallucination but recognized as unreal.
Trip. Trip.
A hallucinatory experience induced by drugs.
An acid trip.
Visual hallucination. Visual hallucination.
Illusory visual perception.
Chromatism. Chromatism.
Hallucinatory perception of colored lights.
Pink elephants. Pink elephants.
Any visual hallucination arising from heavy drinking.
Zoopsia. Zoopsia.
Visual hallucination of animals, sometimes occurring in delirium tremens.
Nihilistic delusion. Nihilistic delusion.
The delusion that things, or everything, including the self, do not exist, a sense that everything is unreal.
Somatic delusion. Somatic delusion.
A delusion concerning the body image or parts of the body.
Zoanthropy. Zoanthropy.
The delusion that you have assumed the form of an animal.
Dissociation. Dissociation.
A state in which some integrated part of a person's life becomes separated from the rest of the personality and functions independently.
Compartmentalization. Compartmentalization.
A mild state of dissociation.
Dissociative disorder. Dissociative disorder.
Dissociation so severe that the usually integrated functions of consciousness and perception of self break down.
Depersonalization. Depersonalization.
Emotional dissociative disorder in which there is loss of contact with your own personal reality, accompanied by feelings of unreality and strangeness.
Fugue. Fugue.
Dissociative disorder in which a person forgets who they are and leaves home to create a new life. During the fugue, there is no memory of the former life. After recovering, there is no memory for events during the dissociative state.
Split personality. Split personality.
A relatively rare dissociative disorder in which the usual integrity of the personality breaks down and two or more independent personalities emerge.
Hallucinosis. Hallucinosis.
A mental state in which the person has continual hallucinations.
Section 8. In this section, we will explore mental health.
Mental health. Mental health.
The psychological state of someone who is functioning at a satisfactory level of emotional and behavioral adjustment.
Mental soundness. Mental soundness.
The healthy psychological state of someone with good judgment.
Sanity. Sanity.
Normal or sound powers of mind.
Lucidity. Lucidity.
A lucid state of mind, not confused.
Rationality. Rationality.
The state of having good sense and sound judgment.
He had to rely less on reason than on rousing their emotions.
Mental illness. Mental illness.
Any disease of the mind, the psychological state of someone who has emotional or behavioral problems serious enough to require psychiatric intervention.
Insanity. Insanity.
Relatively permanent disorder of the mind.
Craziness. Craziness.
Informal terms for insanity.
Dementia. Dementia.
Mental deterioration of organic or functional origin.
Alcoholic dementia. Alcoholic dementia.
Dementia observed during the last stages of severe chronic alcoholism involves loss of memory for recent events, although long-term memory is intact.
Presenile dementia. Presenile dementia.
Dementia with onset before the age of 65.
Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease.
A progressive form of presenile dementia that is similar to senile dementia, except that it usually starts in the 40s or 50s. First symptoms are impaired memory, which is followed by impaired thought and speech, and finally complete helplessness.
Pick's disease. Pick's disease.
A progressive form of presenile dementia found most often in middle-aged and elderly women, and characterized by degeneration of the frontal and temporal lobes, with loss of intellectual ability and transitory aphasia.
Senile dementia. Senile dementia.
Dementia of the aged results from degeneration of the brain in the absence of cerebrovascular disease.
Derangement. Derangement.
A state of mental disturbance and disorientation.
Irrationality. Irrationality.
The state of being irrational, lacking powers of understanding.
Lunacy. Lunacy.
Obsolete terms for legal insanity.
Megalomania. Megalomania.
A psychological state characterized by delusions of grandeur.
Psychosis. Psychosis.
Any severe mental disorder in which contact with reality is lost or highly distorted.
Delirium tremens. Delirium tremens.
Acute delirium caused by alcohol poisoning.
Paranoia. Paranoia.
A psychological disorder characterized by delusions of persecution or grandeur.
Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia.
Any of several psychotic disorders characterized by distortions of reality and disturbances of thought and language and withdrawal from social contact.
Acute schizophrenic episode. Acute schizophrenic episode.
Schizophrenia of abrupt onset and relatively short duration, a few weeks or months.
Borderline schizophrenia. Borderline schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia characterized by mild symptoms or by some pre-existing tendency to schizophrenia.
Catatonic schizophrenia. Catatonic schizophrenia.
A form of schizophrenia characterized by a tendency to remain in a fixed stupor state for long periods. The catatonia may give way to short periods of extreme excitement.
Hebephrenia. Hebephrenia.
A form of schizophrenia characterized by severe disintegration of personality, including erratic speech and childish mannerisms and bizarre behavior, usually becomes evident during puberty, the most common diagnostic category in mental institutions.
Paranoid schizophrenia. Paranoid schizophrenia.
A form of schizophrenia characterized by delusions of persecution or grandeur or jealousy. Symptoms may include anger and anxiety and aloofness and doubts about gender identity. Unlike other types of schizophrenia, the patients are usually presentable and, if delusions are not acted on, may function in an apparently normal manner.
End of episode. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. In the next episode, we will present Attribution.